Most people past 60 have been told that slowing down is natural, that a little stiffness in the knees or a night of restless sleep is simply the price of getting older. I have seen how comforting that thought can be, yet I have also seen how it quietly steals strength, confidence, and independence from people who still have years of life ahead. Imagine waking up with aching joints that make you hesitate before stepping out of bed, feeling a little less steady on your feet each month, forgetting the name of a neighbor you have known for years, or losing the appetite that once made meals a joy. These are not random inconveniences. They are signs your body is asking for help. Studies from respected sources like the Mayo Clinic show that muscle loss and decreased bone density can accelerate after 60 if left unaddressed, making everyday activities riskier. But here is the truth I want you to remember. The path back to strength and vitality does not have to be complicated or expensive. I have guided people your age toward meaningful change, starting with something as simple as 10 minutes of gentle movement each morning, or adjusting a single part of their evening routine. If you are like most Americans in this stage of life, you value solutions that are safe, easy to maintain, and respectful of your dignity. You do not want extreme diets or punishing workouts. You want a plan that fits into your day without taking it over, one that helps you wake up more refreshed, move more freely, and trust your own memory again. This journey is about keeping your independence, your joy, and your sense of control, and I am here to walk it with you. I have learned over the years that it is not just what you say, but how you say it that determines whether your message truly reaches someone. You can share the most valuable piece of health advice backed by decades of research, yet if it sounds cold, distant, or demanding, the person listening will quietly turn away. I speak to you now as if I were sitting in the chair beside your bed, perhaps with a warm cup of tea between us, not as a lecturer on a stage. This tone matters because health is personal. At 60 or 70, you are not looking for a voice that orders you around. You are looking for a companion who understands what it feels like to wake up with stiff knees or to lie awake at night, counting the hours until morning. Speaking in the first person allows me to share my own experiences and lessons, not as commands, but as an invitation. The right tone, warm, calm, and respectful, creates trust, and with trust comes the willingness to try something new. On the other hand, a voice that is too formal or filled with jargon builds a wall between us, making it harder for you to hear the heart of the message. I choose American English that is plain and easy to follow, not because I doubt your intelligence, but because clarity is a gift when the subject is your health. I avoid slang that could feel confusing or out of place, and I steer clear of fear-based language because living in fear is not the path to healing. My goal is for every word to feel like it was chosen for you, carrying the weight of expertise but the gentleness of a friend who has walked this path before. I have seen beautifully researched health advice lose its impact simply because it was presented in a way that made it hard to follow. Formatting is not just a matter of style. It is the bridge between your message and the person receiving it. If that bridge is cluttered with symbols, abrupt breaks, or numbers that feel clinical, the listener's mind will wander before the heart of the message ever lands. That is why I avoid special characters that can interrupt the flow of speech when read aloud. I write every number in full words, not because digits are wrong, but because words have a softness that fits the rhythm of conversation, and they translate seamlessly into spoken form. I choose continuous prose over bullet points or blog-style lists, because life does not happen in fragments, and neither should a story about your health. This way, when my words are converted to voice, they sound like a natural dialogue rather than a set of instructions. The advantage of this approach is clear. It invites the listener to stay with you from the first sentence to the last, without mental pauses that break the emotional connection. The disadvantage of ignoring it is equally clear. A well-intentioned message can end up sounding mechanical or disjointed, causing the listener to miss the deeper meaning. My goal is always the same: to create a smooth, uninterrupted current of words, that carries you effortlessly toward understanding and action. Over the years, I have learned that even the most powerful message can fade into the background if it is not delivered in a shape the mind naturally wants to follow. Without a clear structure, your listener will drift away, their attention caught by something else before you have the chance to finish your thought. That is why I build each section like a story with a pulse. It begins with a hook, something unexpected, or even a little unsettling that shakes the listener from autopilot and makes them lean closer. Then I open the door to the problem itself, painting it in colors they can recognize from their own life, so it feels immediate and personal. Once the weight of the problem is real, I explain the science in plain language, stripping away the jargon but keeping the truth, so the listener understands not just what is happening, but why. This is followed by a true story, because facts touch the mind, but stories touch the heart. When the heart is engaged, the solution I offer feels less like a prescription and more like a gift, something small, clear, and safe that they can begin today. After that, I give a gentle nudge, a mini call to action, to turn listening into doing. I close with a note of encouragement, a reminder that change is possible, because hope is the fuel that keeps action alive. Finally, I extend an invitation to the community, opening the space for shared experiences, because knowing you are not alone can be as healing as any remedy. The advantage of this structure is that it moves the listener forward without friction, guiding them step by step until they arrive at understanding and motivation. The disadvantage of ignoring it is that your message, no matter how valuable, may scatter into pieces and be forgotten before it has the chance to take root. I have seen it happen many times. Someone takes a piece of content with good bones and good intentions, rewrites it in haste, and ends up stripping away the very heart that made it worth hearing. That is why my process for rewriting and expanding is deliberate from the very first question. I begin by asking how many parts you want the story to unfold into, because knowing the shape helps control the rhythm. Then I measure the original length, not to be bound by it, but to set a baseline. My goal is always to make the new version at least 1/3 longer, often by nearly half. Not by adding empty words, but by enriching the ideas, sharpening the imagery, and deepening the emotional current. I keep the spirit of the original intact, while lifting it to a higher level of clarity, expertise, and feeling. Each section is treated as a living scene that connects smoothly to the next, so the listener never feels the edge of a chapter break. At the close of each part, I pause to ask if you want to continue, giving space for reflection and ensuring the pace matches your needs. Only when every piece has been written and woven together do I end with a clear signal that the work is complete. The advantage of this process is that it preserves the strengths of the original while unlocking its fuller potential. It respects the listener's time and attention while delivering more value than they expected. The disadvantage of ignoring it is that you risk producing something longer but not better, a body without a heartbeat, and no one stays for that. In my years of crafting health stories, I have learned that the quickest way to lose a listener is not with a wrong fact, but with a weak moment. Sometimes it is a hook that lands too softly, giving the mind permission to drift before the heart of the message is even heard. Sometimes it is the absence of a single number or statistic that could have anchored the point, leaving it floating without weight. I have seen powerful warnings fade because they were never repeated, or introductions fall flat because they lacked the warmth and urgency to draw someone in. I have seen solutions get ignored simply because there was no gentle call to action at the moment the listener was ready to act. Without vivid imagery, the mind has nothing to hold on to, and without an invitation to share or respond, the message ends in silence. The advantage of addressing these missteps is that each one, once corrected, strengthens the chain of connection between you and your audience. A sharp hook makes them stop and listen. A well-placed statistic gives them reason to believe. A refrain reminds them why it matters. And a thoughtful invitation turns a solitary experience into a shared one. The disadvantage of leaving them uncorrected is simple. The message may still exist, but it will pass through the listener like water through open fingers, leaving no mark and sparking no change. I have watched more health videos than I can count, and the difference between the ones that stay with you and the ones you forget comes down to a single truth. Structure is the invisible hand that guides the heart and mind. Without it, even the most important facts slip away. That is why my blueprint for a medical story always begins with a hook that jolts the listener awake, often by turning a familiar belief on its head. Once that spark is lit, I step into a personal question that makes the issue feel close, impossible to ignore. Then I open the curtain on the science, but I keep it in everyday language so the listener understands the body's logic without feeling lost. Facts alone are not enough, so I weave in a real story, something lived and felt that allows the listener to see themselves in the experience. When the heart is engaged, I offer a small, clear action they can take right now, something safe and manageable that builds confidence. I close with a message of encouragement, because the road to better health is built on hope as much as on knowledge. Finally, I invite them into the conversation, opening the door for them to share, because change is easier when you are not walking alone. The advantage of this sequence is that it carries the listener forward like a gentle current, each step preparing the ground for the next. The disadvantage of ignoring it is that your message may become a collection of moments with no thread to hold them together, and without that thread, even good advice can be lost in the noise.